This is the Conrad Alert. Civil defense information will be broadcast at 6:40.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Y2K, how can we prepare?
Stop a few of their machines and radios. Throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We are fighting for our lives. My family must survive.
Food for 5 years. 1,000 gallons of gas. Air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada. Streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, and Odyssey. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim, and today is August the 6th, 2023, and this is episode, you ready for it? 350 of Workshop Radio. How the hell is everyone out there? In just a minute, I'm going to bring on Rick, who is known as the Survivalist Gardener. He is the co-founder of Prepper Camp. He's a returning guest and someone whom I now consider a friend, a really good dude. And his wife, Jane's awesome too. So we're going to bring him on in just a minute. But let's get the announcements out of the way for you folks, and we'll be good to go. Sunday evening, we got to remember our sponsor, and that is Amy Dingman of A Farmer's Kind of Life. She is getting ready to launch a bunch of cool things, including a new Facebook page. So get by, check her out at thefarmerskindoflife.com. And her new episode this week is, she's really good at observing people, watching people, figuring out what they're doing. And this week she's talking about the things we spend time worrying about that we can't remedy ourselves. In other words, leave them be and get going. So number 2, guys, is Prepper Camp. You know, I'm going to be there speaking. Rick is going to be there speaking probably 17 times a day. I'm going to guess somewhere around there, somewhere between 3 and 17. And tickets price go up on August 15th. Right now, they're just 5 cents under $70. And in, what do we got? 9 days, they jump to $89.95. So if you're coming, buy your tickets, save some money, and see us all there. And with that, guys, let's bring on Mr. Rick. 1 second. Hey, Rick, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Very good. Very good. Things are growing here at the workshop like crazy, and we are going on and carrying on. It's a good thing. So how about you?
I've been busy. Been busy with the Prepper Camp, been busy with 120 livestock animals and lots of new babies, and we got to get rid of the babies. I spend more time selling babies than I do anything else. So unfortunately, that's just the way it is. They keep having these things. I don't know how it happens, but you know, it's just a problem that they create for me. But it is great kind of living off of living off grid and producing all our own food, especially with what's going on in the world right now and the lack thereof, or the planned lack of food. And you know, it's nice to know what you are actually putting in your body and it's healthy for you, and you control everything that it eats and that you are eating now. Plus, yes. In the States, in the last 2 years, food staples have gone up 74%. So that's just stuff that you would normally store for food. I mean, just that's gone up 74%. So that's making it tough. And with inflation the way it's going right now, it's tough for people, because I think the average family in the States right now is spending $18,000 a year on food.
Wow.
That's a lot of dough. You know, if you factor in the taxes and everything else. So, you know, if you can take off a piece of that or all of that, that gives you a lot more money to put into, you know, homestead infrastructure or whatever you're trying to do, that you don't have to spend on food if you're growing your own.
You know, my wife and I have been together 17, 18 years, something like that. And that, what you just mentioned, spent on food, was almost my entire year's salary the first couple of years we were married. That's scary for So we've grown a bunch since last year. And I look back, you were on June 2022, 126 episodes ago. Can you give the audience the elevator pitch, who Survivor Rick is and where you came from?
Yeah. I'll make it kind of brief. I started as I was a television producer and marketing guy, and I was kind of on the side a gentleman farmer, and I had apple trees, apple orchards, and I did everything that you were supposed to do. Conventional wisdom: used pesticide, fertilizer, weed killer, pesticide every 10 days and after every rain. And I still had scabby, wormy apples just like every other apple farmer. And when we finally decided to, take our final step and move off grid, because we had been moving from one place to another and successively were adding more new technology that was sustainable. And today we live totally off grid house, which is designed really a lot of unique ways. And I learned a lot and did a lot of engineering for it. And over time, I figured out what worked and what didn't. So, we got here, and I said to my wife, Survivor Jane, that, I really want to try this permaculture food forest stuff. And I've been reading a lot about it and reading these 400-page books by professors in agriculture and eggheads that couldn't speak English, and it was just way too much for anybody to read, and the pictures were in black and white and muddy, and I'm going, nobody can understand this. So I sort of jumped off the cliff, and we put in this permaculture garden. It's with little ecosystems. So I got like 40 ecosystems. Each one, the central tree is a fruit tree or a nut tree, and that grows up and it grows out over time. And then you have a canopy underneath it, and underneath that canopy is shade. And there's certain plants that enjoy that shade, and there's a symbiotic relationship between those plants and that tree. And then outside of that shade is full sun again, and that's where you plant your bushes, like your blueberries, blackberries, elderberries, raspberry, that kind of thing. And then outside of that is full sun again, and that's where you plant your medicinal and your cooking herbs. And so you've got these concentric circles, really, which is the way nature grows things naturally, not in straight lines like man does. Man puts things in straight lines just because it's easier for him to be able to, walk down and pick stuff, or to do it commercially that way. So, and what happens is the herbs are flowering all the time. They've got little florets, so it's bringing in the pollinators. And it's also bringing in the predatory wasps that kill the bad bugs that you don't want to have on your fruit. So it's a defensive perimeter around your fruit. And plus you've got, medicine, and you've got cooking herbs. So it's the way nature's grown things for millions of years. And, I said, I'm going to try this. And I did. And in the first year we had more food than we could eat. And today, after 15 years, our fruit trees went from 5 feet tall to 30 feet tall. And of course, they're really wide. So it literally looks like a jungle. It looks like a food forest. You can't really tell what's growing there until stuff starts to ripen. And today, that little half-acre food forest feeds ourselves and every one of our animals. So everything from, our goats and our chickens and our rabbits and our ducks to our pigs. So, when we harvest fruit, like, for example, we have an Asian pear tree that last year we got the big gorilla carts, the big ones. I can't remember how many gallons they are, but I mean, they're huge. We filled 4 of those up from one tree, and the really, really good stuff. And Jane was very particular this year because she said, I don't want to spend my time pairing pears or, just peeling pears that aren't perfectly round because it's too much work. So, so all the good, really perfectly round ones we brought in, and she preserved those in one form or another from, just canning them, cold packing, freezing some stuff. And also we got a freeze dryer last year, so we put that to work as well, dehydrating stuff too. So So that stuff went in the house and into food storage, and we're eating that stuff. And the other stuff, the stuff that wasn't quite that good went to the goats, and the stuff that was really rotten and had lots of bugs in it went to the chickens, and they loved that. And then the other stuff that was kind of in between went to the pigs. So we're feeding everybody off of that. And of course, the livestock that we have is producing protein for us. So we've got Nigerian dwarf dairy goats that really don't take up a lot of space. I'm big on return on investment. I've been known as a cheap SOB. And that's just because I take a business perspective to everything, because I was in business for 35 years. So, I want to spend the least amount of money, time, and energy on something and get the most I can, so that, get the most bang for my buck. So the Nigerian dwarfs only come up to my knee, but 3 of those girls at any one time will produce 1.5 gallons of milk a day. So for Jane and myself, that's a big task for her every single day, trying to, as she says, move the milk. So she turns that into every dairy product that you'd normally buy in a store. So not only do we have milk, but we have cream, and we have cream cheese, and we have cheesecake, and we have ice cream, the best ice cream in the world, because it's 50% more butterfat than cow's milk. If you are lactose intolerant to cow's milk, you will not beat it to goat's milk, because it's a totally different type of milk and different fat globulates. It's very small. And she makes all the different cheeses with it, from mozzarella to the cheddar cheeses. So those are our goats. And of course, the pigs that we raise red wattles, and those pigs are a heritage breed. They are very long and tall, and they're very muscular. The boar we have is 8 feet long, 4 feet at the shoulder. He's 950 pounds, and he's only 2 years old. So wow. They grow to be big, but they're very gentle. They're great mothers. They're prolific. They have a very low mortality rate for babies. So, we'll have 10 to 12 babies per litter, and between 2 sows and 1 male, 1 boar, we're producing 5 litters a year. So that's 50 to 60 baby pigs a year. And I'm in this venture with 2 partners. So our whole point was we were going to be homesteaders, and we were just going to we were going to raise up 1 or 2 pigs per family per year. But now we're producing 60. So instead of 6 pigs that we were going to keep, we're producing 60. So I spend a lot of time selling those pigs, but they are coveted. They're, people do want them, and they are a heritage breed. And for all the reasons that, they can run on any terrain. So we run them up through the mountains trained. Normally pigs, you can't do that.
Nice.
They live a long time. They're gentle. They're not aggressive. I didn't want to have an animal that could eat me and would eat me. So, it's great that we've got these pigs, and they pay for themselves, because we're selling the pigs for $250 each, and we're making money, and we get people coming from as far away as New York and Texas for these pigs from us.
Wow.
And of course, we got rabbits, which do what rabbits do. And, we produce 12-pound rabbits, and the math with rabbits, again, I'm a cheap SOB and like return on investment. Rabbits do what rabbits do, and 3 girls and 1 boy will produce 90 full-grown rabbits in a year. And the 12-pound rabbit's going to dress out at about 10 pounds. So 90 times 10 is 900 pounds of meat from an animal that doesn't eat a lot, doesn't take up a lot of space, and doesn't make any noise, which is really kind of the perfect prepper protein, because, they've got the highest protein to bone and fat ratio of any animal out there. So they're good, and they're quiet. So, and I know people that raise them in a garage. So it's a great, and we've got chickens, and we've got ducks as well. And the ducks are an integral part of my secret garden of survival, because the ducks will go in my garden. They'll eat the bugs and slugs and snails that I don't want to have on my fruit in my garden. And then they fertilize behind them. and they turn those bugs and slugs and snails into protein for me in the form of eggs, which is the perfect protein because every building block of life is in there. So we get a lot of eggs from our ducks and from our chickens and our dogs, which we have guardian livestock dogs to protect all the animals and to protect our garden. They're eating strictly what we produce. So they're eating ham and eggs, lots of eggs every morning, cheese. So basically everything that we produce, they eat. So we don't have to buy store-bought dog food with GMOs and chemicals and all that other crap in there.
Chris Dixon just wanted to ask a question here about the trees in the circle. And I think I probably know where the answer is going with this because most of your answers do. Were the fruit trees allowed to grow naturally, or were there shape or scaffold pruning done to them?
I just let nature take its course. And the biggest mistake maybe that I made was not realizing how big things would get, how fast, how tall. But nature has a way of taking care of stuff because, if things get to be too heavy because we've got too much fruit on it, a branch will break. And, that which does not kill them makes them stronger. So, no, I don't do any pruning. I do have my goats go into that garden. I keep them out during the season, but afterwards I let them eat the leaves and browse and kind of chew stuff back and whatever. So, but they tend to eat, more of the weeds and the things like the blackberry bushes and that kind of stuff. They love that. It's amazing to me, something with all those thorns on it, that they can just eat that and mouth it and not get pricked like I would just walking by it.
Right. What kind of inputs do you have for your entire land at this point?
What do you mean by inputs?
So I guess from outside, do you bring much feed in, fertilizer, anything like that at all?
No fertilizer, no weed killer, no pesticide. We don't even water anything. The way they're set up is the same way that the Mayans used to have their plantings on the side of a mountain. So on the south side, where you're going to get the most sun on this hemisphere, we've planted right down the side of a mountain, have terraces. So, water runs downhill and we've got little berms on each terrace. So there's a little bump there and the water just settles right there and it creates a lens-shaped pool of water. And because these plants are all perennials and not annuals, they don't have a 3-month life cycle. You plant once and you harvest for a lifetime. They have a chance to put down deep roots and to be able to draw down that water, no matter what the conditions are. So we've had 6-week droughts here, and my garden, my food forest looks lush and green. And because I'm on top of the mountain, I can see all around me, and all these traditional farms, their plants are all dead, and I don't have to do any watering. So,
wow, I love that. So simple.
And the only input I would say that we put in there now that we didn't when we started is we got a lot of poop with all these animals. So the goat poop goes out in the garden, and the rabbit poop goes out there. We went to a Mother Earth news fair several years ago, and these libtard hippie types were out there, and they were one of these places was selling these little containers with rabbit poop in it because it's such a high nutrient fertilizer, and they were selling them for $5. And I said to my wife, we're rich. I mean, because we have a lot of rabbit poop. So we do use that in the greenhouse. We've got an entirely enclosed and an insulated greenhouse. So in the wintertime, we're growing food there year round. It's an engineering marvel too, because we've got concrete planters going all around at 3 feet tall, so you don't have to bend over to deal with your plants. The windows in it are they're triple pane argon filled windows, so the heat and light go in but don't go out, and we've got glazing on the top as well. So it's a fantastic, because we have some pretty harsh winters here, and there have been times when we've had 33 degrees below zero, that's Fahrenheit, with the wind chill factor, and I don't have any supplemental heat in that greenhouse, and the greenhouse is attached to the home, so we're sharing heat from the greenhouse into the house, and I've got a solar fan that basically sucks the warm, moist air into the house in the wintertime, and we don't have the sick house syndrome that a lot of people have. So we've got highly oxygenated air because plants give off oxygen. We breathe in oxygen. We breathe out carbon dioxide. Plants breathe in carbon dioxide. So there's a symbiotic relationship between us and the plants. And so our air goes back into the greenhouse, and the greenhouse air comes into the house. And, we never get shocks in our stocking feet because the air is not too dry, and it's just a much healthier environment for us. Plus, we're growing summer salads in the wintertime.
Sure. And lemons and coffee, or at least in the past, or citrus of
lemons,
some sort?
Yeah, lemons and orange trees and coffee trees. And there was one point where we had 50 coffee trees growing in the greenhouse. But it's as they said, in a end of the world as we know it, SHTF situation. There's lots of people that would say I'd die for a cup of coffee. Well, we got coffee, and I would rather trade coffee beans than trade bullets with somebody if I had to do any trading, unless of course it's just the one end of the bullet that I'm trading with them.
Sure. if it's a one-sided trade, you're pretty good. So
yeah, right. Yeah.
One Step Closer wants to know, what type of rabbits do you raise, or what breed?
They're called Champagne d'Argent rabbits. So you have to say that with your nose in the air and say it like you're from, the other side of Canada.
Sure. Quebecois.
Yeah. They're basically a French silver rabbit. So
okay.
Champagne d'Argent. So they come from the Champagne region in France, and d'Argent is D''ARG, so argent, basically. So that's what they are. They're French silver rabbit.
Okay. When I had you on last year, so what I wanted to bring you back on today too was I was kind of enthralled in the idea of how you built your house and your property and what you used for it, because I went back and re-listened today because I didn't want to double up on things if I didn't have to. And you'd mentioned something that when you built your house, the waste materials were about enough to fit on a tabletop. So is that right? Yeah. So what kind of, talk a little bit about your home design, your property, that sort of thing.
I built every house that I lived in throughout the years. So every year every time we'd move and build another house, we would build it better because there'd be new materials and new construction. But I grew up in the construction business. My father was a plumbing and heating contractor. So and his claim to fame was he was the largest installer of solar heat and hot water systems in all of New England in the 1970s. So I worked for him, summers after school, and between in summers during college, and I learned a lot about solar and the systems that they had then, and things have so vastly improved over what they had back then. But I learned a lot about construction, and if you're a plumber, you're kind of a jack of all trades, because you got to do a little carpentry, you got to do a little electrician stuff. And so you learn a lot of things to do. And when I finally designed this last home, I looked at, again, being a SOB and a business guy and trying to figure out, okay, I only have so much money. What am I going to do? I can't have something that's just going to be architecturally beautiful if it's not going to be sustainable and sufficient. And I'm looking long term in terms of how much it's going to cost me to run this home, with heat and hot water and energy. So if you look back to the old times when people were first, colonizing these United States and Canada, the perfect shape of a home was a rectangle, because it's the most efficient. You look at homes today that architecturally they have jogs, they have gables, they have whatever, they have, T's and L's. Every one of those things is a chance to lose heat in the wintertime and to create, more heat for you in the summertime. So you have to spend energy to air condition it. So the perfect shape is actually a rectangle, and it's a 2-story rectangle because heat rises, and the living quarters on our homes on the second floor, and also if you're up above 12 feet above the ground, your prevailing winds come through then, so you can just open the windows on the second floor and you can get a breeze and stay cool, so you don't have to spend money on air conditioning until you get to the kind of summers that we have here in Western North Carolina, where we recently, the last couple of weeks, we've had 120 degrees with the heat index. So that's 100 degrees Fahrenheit and 20 degrees extra with the humidity we've had. So we have to do a lot of things to keep our animals cool too, because the goats, for example, have an internal temperature of 130 degrees. When it starts to get more than that, we start losing animals. So we've done a lot of stuff there, but I think I'm jumping ahead here. You were just asking about the shape of the house is hugely important. It's south facing because in the northern hemisphere, sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and goes through the south. We've got windows on the south side that are also argon filled windows, so they're insulated, and the sun comes in during the day, and in the summertime the sun is higher in the sky, so we've got overhangs on the house so that we don't have too much heat and too much sun coming in. And in the wintertime, the sun is lower in the sky, so we get direct sun blasting into the house. And the same thing with the greenhouse, which is attached to our home on the first floor. So we're getting lots of heat from the sun, and the more heat I can get from the sun that is passive, that's passive solar heat, the better off we are. So I like to tell people there's 2 things you need to remember is if you want to be an efficient home, it's glass and thermal mass. So you want to have a lot of glass, a lot of glazing on the south side, not on the other sides, because if you do, you're going to start losing heat there. And then you want that sun blasting in there, and you need to have a thermal mass that is going to absorb that heat during the day and then give it off evenly at night. So in one of my past homes, we had a wood stove, and anybody that's had a wood stove knows that when you heat that thing up to 900 degrees, it makes it pretty damn hot in the room that you're in, and almost too hot and too unbearable. And then it cools down, and it cools down pretty fast, and then it becomes sort of cold. So I encased a wood stove that we had in brick, so it would heat up the brick and then heat it up evenly, and then the brick would give off heat long after the wood stove had died and just give it off evenly, and so it made it easy for you to be in the room and not get burned out of there. So we try to have as much thermal mass as we can, and that's particularly important in a greenhouse because we do have those planters, and they are concrete all the way around. So that's a thermal mass that the sun comes in and heats up during the day, and it gives the heat off evenly at night.
That's cool. So, okay, for you with the home design, was it more? So it sounds like it was more important to get the south sun than to stay cooler. Like, so do you battle with the heat more, or do you battle with the cold more there?
It doesn't get as hot because again, the building is set up so that there's overhangs, and the sun is higher in the sky in the summertime. So in the wintertime, we're getting as much as we want and need. And it's always nice if it's too hot to be able to open the windows. So we can do that. So that's not as much an issue. The issue here is the humidity. Okay. So we have had years where we didn't really do anything humidity wise, and there were some dead spots down in the basement area, and we ended up having some mold issues down there on stuff. So circulation is important. And today, because we have solar panels, it took us 15 years before we made that investment, because we're not making a lot of money, but we don't need to make a lot of money to survive. And, because of our lifestyle we have, we're feeding ourselves. So we don't have that $18,000 a year that we have to spend for food. And so that money goes back into the infrastructure, and, the money that we make by selling, animals and babies and that sort of thing, that goes back into the infrastructure. So last year we bit the bullet, and we now are completely solar powered electricity wise on our house. So I've got 24 panels that are 465 watts each. And we've got that, and we've got a solar inverter that is a 12K inverter, and it's also EMP proof, because I said, what's the sense of spending the money if we have an EMP and it fries the inverter and suddenly my entire system is worthless. So we did that, and we've got a battery bank to store the power that we make in the day, and we can use that at night. And now we're able to run air conditioners not only in the house but also in the barn to keep our animals cooler if we need to. So that all runs off the sun.
So that's so the air conditioner is a new addition, then, is it? Or
yeah, well, the air conditioner in terms of being not on the grid, that's a new one. Yeah,
that's new.
But it's basically a window air conditioner, because this building is so efficient. I mean, the other thing I didn't talk about too is insulation, and we've got spray-in Icynene foam insulation in the house. So the house is encased in an envelope of this foam insulation, and this is the kind that doesn't gas formaldehyde. It's basically made out of castor beans, so it's impervious to ants and that sort of stuff, so bugs. And the outside of the house is covered with hardy board siding, which is a cement siding, so we don't have issues with it with bugs, with carpenter bees trying to eat it, with it rotting. And it's also fireproof, which is always a good thing too. So, and in the greenhouse, I will mention that because it's an insulated greenhouse, it's a wet environment. We had to use all pressure treated lumber in there. It's insulated. The windows are vinyl clad. Everything inside, in terms of the trim, is vinyl PVC. And the walls inside are also hardy board, so they're concrete board. So we don't have the issue with having the high humidity that we have naturally in a greenhouse. We don't have mold and that kind of stuff going on there, or things rotting. The wood rotting and that kind of stuff.
I love hardy board. I think it's one of the best products. Because for the most part, it cuts like wood, and it go. Oh yeah, it's beautiful stuff.
Yeah, just wear a mask when you're cutting it, because you don't want that stuff inside your lungs. But yeah,
good point. I think Ryan Prepper Dad. He does the freeze dryer. I'm pretty sure he put hardy on his house this summer. So, and it looks he did a good job. So I just got to show him out, But
good.
Before we went live, you mentioned to me that you made a big change in your tools, and there's nothing I love to talk about more than tools, and I kind of get a feeling you don't mind that either.
No. Well, we got 17 buildings in this property. There was not a single building on it when we moved here. So I have built everything. So every time we're adding infrastructure and we're adding new animals, they got to have a place to stay. And because every predator in Western North Carolina, from gray wolf to gray fox, red fox, coyotes, we've got a lot of coyotes here, black bear, and even mountain lion we've got here. So everybody's got to be locked up at night. So all of our animals are locked up before dark, because that's when most of the predators come out. So we have buildings for our ducks, for our goats, a couple different buildings for the goats. And then we've just kind of, as time has gone on, we've added on and added on. So I've had to do a lot of carpentry and a lot of design stuff and used a lot of tools. And I have now, I used to have a gas powered chainsaw. I hated the thing. I had lung issues and was breathing in the smoke, which had oil in it. And I just said I just hate using this thing. Plus it's always a problem in terms of working. And I ended up buying a little Greenworks pole saw. And I was helping a friend out, and that little 8-inch blade was taking down 14-inch trees. And their chainsaws were failing. And I'm going, hey, this thing's pretty good. So I ended up changing over all of my electric outdoor tools, from hedge trimmers to, weed whips to all of my circular saws, skill saws, the rotary blades, everything, sawzalls, that kind of stuff are all now Greenworks. I just love the product. So they're all electric. They're either 24 volt or 40 volt batteries. And the beauty is I can charge them all with the sun, because I've got solar panels to be able to do that. So I will not need to have gasoline and oil. Well, I'll just need chain oil, but I won't need to have gasoline and oil to be able to run these tools in a grid down situation, or, forever, for, however long they last. So.
They're really good. I never thought of this till just now. I switched a few years ago from all gas steel stuff to all battery powered DeWalt, but they're really good for OPSEC as well, because they're significantly quieter overall.
Oh yeah. The chainsaw doesn't make any noise whatsoever. So yeah, it's. I mean, you realize people can hear that for miles, and if you're alive and everybody else around you is not, and you got people, bad guys, foraging around for food and trying to find somebody that does have food, that's a good way for them to hone in on you and follow the sound to you, and then they take your chainsaw away and everything else you got too, if there's enough of them.
I mean, because if you've got a chainsaw, then you probably have wood, which means you probably have heat. You got a way to boil. Yeah, exactly. Right. And So what's your favorite one out of those, or what ones do you really like? And have you been disappointed with any of them yet?
All my hand tools, I use the impact drill every day. On something that's always breaking, something's always a fence needs to be mended, something's falling apart. So I'm using that impact drill every single day. So I love that thing. It's just great. And it's light, and I can take it everywhere, and I can put it in my golf cart, because we got 55 acres here. So, anything that I need to do, my golf cart is more, it's called the Beast, is the actual brand name of the thing. And it's a hunting cart. It's DC powered batteries, 48 volt of batteries, but it runs on an AC engine. So they convert the DC to AC. And this thing it's got tremendous torque. In fact, my wife doesn't like riding in it because the thing wants to pop a wheelie every time you hit the gas on it. So, but that's another thing that now I'm charging, with solar, so I can run that thing. And I used to be running, since we have 2 miles of roads here, I used to be running from, where I am down to the bottom to go to the mailbox or whatever we needed to do. And I had to start up my diesel truck to run down there. And I was using diesel fuel every time I did, and it's wear and tear on that vehicle. And now I just jump in the golf cart and zip down there. And if I have something I need to work on, I put a ladder on, I put all the tools I need on it, and then I can work on the pig fence or do whatever I need, just using that vehicle.
So how often do you have to charge that? Because I hadn't seen one of these. I just looked them up and I shared the link here, because they blow me out of the water what they look like and what they can do.
Are you talking about the golf cart?
Yeah, the golf cart.
Are you talking about the
Beast?
Yeah,
the Beast.
How Yeah, yeah. I just charge it. You got to
Keep
be
it plugged in.
smart about it. So I usually try to charge it by 3 o'clock in the afternoon because we're
Okay.
still getting plenty of sun at that point, and it's going to be long enough for it to be completely charged up. So charging it every day after just to top off the batteries, and I don't want to run them down too far. So I just kind of do it as a matter of course. So I'm just charging it to make sure that they're not charged down too far. And if we have several days that are cloudy or rainy or whatever, I don't have to really worry about it.
You mentioned your impact driver. Do you have a set of drill bits that fit into an impact driver? Have you picked those up?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
And
Because when I discovered those, they were
probably my favorite screws of all time are star drive screws. So I use them on everything. This whole house was built with star drive screws. They just screw in better than a Phillips head, certainly better than any flathead, and they just work great in an impact driver. So every building I've built has been built with those. It's basically like deck screws, but they've got the Torx bit, star.
Like the star.
Yeah, the Torx. Yeah, the Torx bit one. Yep. Yeah.
If you haven't tried them yet, they're called a GRK screw, and they are a structural screw. You can get them in 3, 4, 6, 12 inches long. They're 1/4 to 3/8 thick, and they have a Torx. The guy at the hardware store a year ago talked me into them. I use them for everything now. You know how they say Frank's Red Hot, you put that shit on everything? Well, I'm telling you right now, these, Rick, if you buy a few, you will be blown out of the water. Because you know how screws, they have they don't have a lot of side shear force on them. They can break off easy. These are made for that. Oh, man. And this is coming from a Canadian who is supposed to love the square drive because some old Canadian invented it, But
oh, really? Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The Torx stuff is great. I mean, everything we have is that. So I've got all of my screws. So if I'm putting up a new feeder for the goats, I'm using those screws, and I'm putting them in the wall and just set it and forget it.
They're awesome. They were weird when I was a kid. I remember my dad saying, I think they were invented by NASA, I believe. I could be wrong about that. But
could be.
They're because you can put them on the end of the screw or the bit, hold them out, and they won't fall off. They're snug, Yeah. What other kind of go-to tools do you use every day that you kind of really enjoy?
The cart I use every day. The Torx impact drill I do. When I need to and I'm building something, I'm using a circular saw, either a small one or full size one, and that's great too because that really doesn't make as much noise as the typical electric one does. And I don't have to be dragging the cords around with me, and I don't have to be picking up cords afterwards and figuring out how I'm going to plug in. And now I can't reach, and so it's just great. So. And then after it's all done, I just take the battery off and put it in the charger, and I let the solar panels and the batteries, for the house just recharge all that.
People ask me all the time, what's the best tool brand? And they joke with me because they know I love my DeWalt, but I'm just a big fan of standardizing on a certain battery ecosystem, whatever you pick, because then you have that.
And that's one of the beauties of the Greenworks one too, because I can use either it's 24 volts or it's 40 volts, but they're all interchangeable. Some have more amp hours than others, but I can run every tool I have off of those two batteries.
And that's perfect. You just grab and go. It's, quote unquote idiot proof, and it works.
And when one battery runs out, you just grab another one and just, replace it. So and you keep going. You're still working.
What do you think of what size bar do you have? A handheld chainsaw as well as a pole saw, or just the pole saw?
Yeah. Well, I have a handheld. Yeah. After I had the pole saw, I'm like, crap, this is great. I mean, this little 8-inch blade is cutting 14-inch trees. Maybe I'm going to get a 14-inch blade. So I did. And that thing is fantastic. I mean, it's just, it cuts like butter, and it just keeps going. I mean, it's got a lot of torque too. So when a normal gas powered chainsaw might bind up, that thing doesn't do it. And it's just it's just handy. I'm not breathing in smoke. I'm not sucking in oil. I don't have that taste in my mouth or, down my throat afterwards. And I'm not making a lot of noise. I really don't have to wear hearing protection if I didn't want to, although I do, just because I'm always using power tools everywhere. So, but they're a lot less problematic in terms of your hearing. And my dad, growing up in the plumbing business, he lost his hearing really early on, and it's just from using loud tools all the time. And back then, they didn't really think about hearing protection, or it's a sissy thing to do. It's just you're just a wussy if you're going to use hearing protection. So,
my dad was a meat cutter his whole life, and he's suffering big time. He retired a couple years ago from like bandsaws in an enclosed space, and he completely lost his hearing at certain frequencies, and that they just didn't think about it. There was no worry. Yep. So, what about lawn care gear? Like, do you do much like weed trimming or weed whipping or anything like that?
I got goats.
They do the trick.
They do the trick. It's the goats are browsers. So we got some bluegrass grass in an area, and there's that for them to chew on. But they're also they eat weeds. They know what they need. I mean, I also take them out. We've got this closed in area where they're in most of the day, and then we've got an electronic solar powered gate that I can open up, and I can take the goats out. So I'm actually providing overwatch because we do have all these predators out there. So they're out there eating the woods, and they eat the same stuff that deer eat. So they're eating leaves off the ground. They're eating the leaves of trees. And this time of the year, there's a lot of leaves. I even will pull down some branches for them, and they're like, "Oh, thanks, Dad. That's great. We love that one." So, I'll pull down some branches for them, and so they can eat that. But it's free food. We've got, like I said, 55 acres of woodland, so it's great. And then they have their fill. They're tired. They start meandering back into the into the yard. That's all enclosed where we have our livestock guardian dogs. And then when the last couple are in, I go in, close the gate, and then I go off and start working on prepper camp stuff on the computer.
I wanted to ask you one more question about your solar system. You said your charge controller was EMP proof. Did you add something on, or do you remember the brand you bought?
It's the Solark. Yeah, Solark.
Solark. Okay.
Yeah, they designed it that way. In fact, the guy that runs the company was a teacher at prepper camp about 7 years ago. So, and he came to prepper camp like 3 years, and then since it's a company in Texas now, and that's what they do is they make these inverters and charge controllers all in one piece, and this one will handle 12.5 kilowatts, and it charges my batteries up and handle the power. And you can do it grid tied if you want to. You can do it completely off the grid. There's all kinds of configurations you can make with this thing. So that's kind of mind boggling. And when you get an electrician that's never dealt with it before, they're kind of going, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to hook up to what, but they got a lot of schematics, and they got a great manual, so it shows all the different ways that you can hook these things up. So
nice. I got another question here from the audience, and then I want to talk a little bit about prepper camp. So Haas says, what vegetables would you recommend for a community survivalist garden? Ones that would have low maintenance.
Let me just kind of go back to the whole concept of the permaculture garden. We grow primarily perennial. So we're talking about fruits, nuts, berries, herbs. So you plant once and harvest for a lifetime. The traditional garden variety vegetables, so to speak, have a 3-month life cycle. So they go from seed to seedling to a flower that gets pollinated, and then then fruit. So whether it's a tomato or cabbage or whatever it happens to be, then it's 3 months and it's done. so it doesn't really have a chance to put down deep roots. But we do grow vegetables in our ecosystems, in and amongst everything. So that takes advantage of those predatory wasps being there. It also takes advantage of the fact that there's all kinds of symbiotic relationships between the plants. They all work better together than they do by themselves. And we don't have any straight row gardens where you have basically a sign on them for all the pests that say, here I am, get me. Because if I have trouble finding some of these vegetables in my garden, then I know that the predators and the raccoons and the possums and all those things that come out at night have trouble finding them too. Whereas if you planting in straight rows, all of that goes away. Which is, and again, that's the way nature grows. But we grow tomatoes in our greenhouse, and you would think it's got a 3-month life cycle, but it actually is a perennial in a tropical environment. So Jane has been growing tomatoes for 3 years in our greenhouse, and they're still producing tomatoes. So one plant, growing for 3 years in the greenhouse, you wouldn't normally think that's the case. So it just kind of depends upon where you are and what you're doing. So first and foremost, I do the perennial stuff, and then we plant different vegetables, try to do as much heirloom stuff as possible, and stay away from GMO stuff, and look for things that are indigenous to your area. So here, Cherokee purple tomatoes, which kind of look odd and don't look like what you normally think of as tomatoes, but they were originally here, the Cherokee Indians, and they're still around. You can still get them. And so those things are more hard to, for example, when culture thing, I planted Concord grapes and I planted muscadine grapes, and muscadine grapes grow here naturally. Concord grapes I love, and we planted those too. The problem is that the Concord grapes have a very thin, and the wasp will come by and they'll sting the skin, and then they'll suck the sweet juice out of them. So what I had was a lot of these grapes were literally rotting on the vine, because and so you walk by and you'd smell these grapes already fermenting. And when they dropped off, it was great for the ducks, because I had a lot of drunk ducks out there that were kind of walking around, waddling worse than they usually do. And then I realized that the muscadines were indigenous to this area, and they've got a very thick skin. So it's difficult to chew them, but Jane preserves them and turns them into jelly and turns them into jam and all the stuff that you would normally do, which is what the reason they call them preserves is because that's how people preserved their food. So when you're talking about strawberry preserves or raspberry preserves, that's how people were able to eat raspberries and strawberries all year long without having freezing freezers or freeze dryers or anything else back then.
I often wonder how they even figured that out. It's quite impressive. Just trial and error, I suppose.
Yeah, the ones that didn't figure it out died. So
right.
The survival of the fittest,
Cabot says, where is here for Rick? It's in North Carolina somewhere, right?
Here is in western North Carolina, the Appalachian Mountains, basically.
So Prepper Camp, this is a special anniversary this year, is it?
Yeah, I can't believe it. This is our 10th year. I wasn't sure after the first one I want another one. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, and it's a lot of moving parts and a lot of balls to juggle all at once. And when we did the first one, it was a big undertaking, and it was less than half the size of what we're doing now in terms of number of classes and number of classrooms and everything else. And there was just so much that we didn't know. So
Right.
I mean, I had done a lot of events before because I was kind of in the marketing business. So I'd done a lot of events, but you have to find the right suppliers and the people that you can count on. And, we've got tents, we've got big screen TVs, we've got computers, everything to do the presentations and the lights for the tents. And you got to find the right people to do it. And then you've got to have people with good equipment. So, and of course, 2,000 chairs is not easy to come by either. So and getting all that stuff done, getting it all laid out and getting it all set up in 2 days, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it takes us, from laying out the vendor area to, painting the stripes and painting the parking lines. And there's just a lot to do, but the main work is, starting 10 months before the event, before those 3 days at prepper camp, is getting new speakers, getting new classes, looking at everything that we did, trying to analyze what we need to do, looking at the new things that are topical now. So with all of the stuff that's going on with, abductions and child trafficking and women trafficking and, the stuff that's coming to light, we've got a class on how not to get kidnapped.
That's great.
Or if you are, how to get out. It's so, those are the kind of things that I look for every year. And, we have 64 classes a day for 3 days of the event. And I look for about 20 new classes every year because we do have people that come back, from the year before, and we always want them to be able to have something that they can see. Now, there's no way that you can see 64 classes in 3 days with, 8 classes going on an hour, and you've got 8 hours worth of classes, but people are able to choose what they want to go see. So if you're interested in home defense or self-defense, or how to keep from getting kidnapped, you can go to those kind of classes. You can go to classes on how to make cheese and how to make soap and how to build the stone oven and how to start a fire, and trapping classes, or how to grow, a permaculture, secret garden, or survival like I have. So we medical stuff and ways that you can use herbs to keep yourself healthy without, so you can get off the industrial medical pharmaceutical grid, which we've, I think, all learned is not something that we all trust anymore. It's just, if you go to preppercamp.com and just look at the list of classes, you can see all kinds of things that we're doing. And, we've got 20 new ones this year that I'm really happy about. We've got artificial intelligence and how to keep from being tracked online. And so there's just a lot of stuff that's very topical for right now, as well as, the standard growing food, canning food, preserving stuff, and home defense and those kind of things.
The guy who does the
and we've got
fantastic
teachers doing it too. We got fantastic teachers doing that stuff too. I mean, the guy that's teaching, how to defend your home from invaders is a guy that is Special Forces Army that kicks indoors for a living. So if he kicks indoors for a living, he has to start having doors being kicked in. So it's those are the kind of people that we have as instructors.
And you've got the guy that runs the Gray Man briefing. He wasn't there last year, was he, or did I miss that?
No, you're talking about Forward Observer.
Observer, that's it. Yeah, sorry.
He actually contacted me because he was at prepper camp, maybe the second and third and fourth prepper camp. So he taught then about area studies and intelligence and how to gather that kind of stuff. And then kind of went off and did this whole Forward Observer stuff. And he called me and I said, "Wow, I haven't heard from you in years, and yeah, we'd love to have you back." So he's teaching
awesome. That. Nice. Are you able to, or do you know who the keynote speaker is going to be yet, or is that not public?
I think I do.
Okay.
As hasn't actually been completely signed on the bottom line, but it's a guy that he talks about how the communists had a plan, a 50-year plan starting in the 60s as to how to infiltrate our country and take it over without a shot. And that includes, they knew they had to take over the media. They knew they had to take over the schools systems, the education. They knew that they had to infiltrate the churches, and they had to infiltrate, obviously, politics. And you go through this list, and actually the guy that came up with this was a former FBI agent, and he wrote a book called The Naked Communists, and he actually had a hearing in Congress and talked about how the Communist Party in the U.S. was going to take over this country, and here's how they were going to do it, step by step by step by step. And if you go through the 50 steps that they had, they've pretty much done everything, including trying to remove God from schools and, the world as we see it today. And everything is just kind of accelerated. So I'd love to have him talk about how all that happened, and then how this thing is accelerating right now, and then what do we do to stop it, because it's so ingrained in everything and every institution. But look at what's happening. People are waking up, and look at what's happening in school boards. Look what people are saying. No, I don't want my kids, I'm putting my foot down about this. So you're seeing that happen now. And we're hopefully going to talk about, some action items that we can do too, and some things we can do to protect our election integrity, so that we actually are voting for the people that, or we're actually getting people in office that we've actually voted for.
And
so there's a lot of that stuff going on.
5 times August, is he coming back?
Yeah. Before he left last year, and I don't know if you've talked about him before, but he is. Yeah. So people, your audience knows who he is. 5 times August.
People who are new might not, but I've talked about him a bunch in the past.
Yeah, and he did that. He did that little video and song about your prime minister too, and the truck that. Yeah. So the guy has got courage. Unbelievable, because he was doing love songs and ballads, at one time, and he was just happily doing what he was doing. And he saw what was going on and just said, I got kids. I need to speak out. I need to do something. And he did a big way. And, he came to prepper camp last year, got a standing ovation. We played his videos between classes, and the brilliant videos, and brilliant music, and great songs, and, catchy tunes and stuff that it's like the political activist songs when I grew up in the 60s and 70s. It's like, hey, wake up, idiot. This is what's really going on here. You can't trust your government. These things are happening, and doing it in such a way that it's disarming for people who are already liberals, or who just are not awake in terms of what's going on. So it's like, yeah, what is this all about? And you show pictures of people in their moronic TikToks, and you say, these people have a mental problem. It's not just a choice. They've got a disease. And why are we letting them rule us, this tiny percentage of the population? Why are we letting them, who we'd normally be putting in asylums, dictate what's going on with us? So for the masses. So anyway, Brad went to prepper camp, and he obviously went through some classes while he was there, and he sat through our keynote speaker's presentation, who is a CIA whistleblower, and talked about what was really going on behind the scenes in the deep state. And Brad was leaving on Sunday, and we were talking and saying goodbye, and he said, he already called his wife and said, everybody, our whole family's coming back here next year. I don't care if Rick doesn't have me sing. I thought we were prepared, but we have so far to go, so long to go, so so much more to do. So he's bringing the family, and we're having him back, and he'll be playing Saturday night.
He's awesome. You set me up with an interview with him last year. We sat down and chatted. We've kind of talked on social a few times, and I followed him. He's been to England a couple times, and I picked up his album
all over the world.
Yeah.
Oh, did? Yeah, great. Yeah,
he did a pre-order.
Speaking of these things. Yeah.
It's awesome. I told him, I made him, he gave me a pre-release CD last year. And I said, you need to sign that so that when you're worldwide famous, I can sell it on eBay or something.
And he's getting there, because he's been going to all the, freedom conferences and the anti-vax conferences. And he's hanging around with the likes of Dr. Robert Malone and all of those guys that, we've now come to realize, hey, these guys are the ones that are standing up for freedom, and
smart dudes.
And talking to, people from the pharmaceutical industry who are now blowing the whistle on the pharmaceutical industry. So yeah, he's hanging around with those guys, and he's going all over the world. I'm weird to say, but I'm just proud of because he is a true, and he really, he's taken the arrows in his back for doing this, and he's got a tremendous amount of courage and talent to do what he does. So just love to see what he's doing, because he's waking people up everywhere.
He's a good man. You can just tell, genuine. I love, sitting down talking with him. He's just, salt of the earth kind of guy, So how do people, people who want to come to Prepper Camp, Rick, where do they go? How much are tickets? That kind of thing.
They go to preppercamp.com. So if you go to preppercamp.com, you'll find out really, everything from where the event is and what date it is. It's the last full weekend in September. I think it's 22nd, 23rd, 24th. And it's in Saluda, North Carolina, in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, at the biggest campground in the region. And at preppercamp.com, you'll see, there's a page on who the speakers are and what their credentials are and what they're going to be talking about. And there's another page on, just the class listing, so you can see what they are. And then you can go to the detailed class information page and just, get a kind of a 2-paragraph description of what you're going to learn in that class, decide whether or not you want to go, because there's way more than you can possibly see at the 3-day event. And you just pick what you want to do. And, it never ceases to amaze me. These people come with a spreadsheet and their schedules, and they know what class they're going to see on what day. And they're going to see Tim the Toolman on Friday. And then in the same time slot, they're going to see somebody else. And so they're just, we're as organized as we possibly can be. I run a really tight ship. Not only are we the largest preparedness, self-reliance, off-grid living event in the nation, but we're also, I'm proud of, the best quality and the best run, because that's what's important. If the quality is there, then everybody's happy. And from the attendees to the speakers and the vendors too. The vendors are happy because there's lots of happy people spending money to solve the problems that they know they have, and they're walking around looking for solutions. So it's it's a great event all the way around. And we talk about we've got a page on the vendors too. So we've got some really interesting new vendors too, who are kind of state of the art stuff. We got one company that's selling de-Googled phones, so you can't be tracked, and they're selling de-Googled computers, laptops as well. So that's always great. I'm going to be the first one in line before the thing even opens to get that stuff. And we've got guys selling silver and gold, which is now more valuable than it ever was, and you better get some if you're going to get some, because the dollar, whether that's the Canadian dollar or the American dollar, ain't going to be around much longer when they go to this OECD, that they go to the digital currency and the banking, and now it's all about control. So you're going to have some way to store value, and especially with inflation the way it is now, and also be able to maybe do some black market stuff. Who knows what's going to happen? I learned a lot about that when I went into Russia. I spent some time there, and it's just amazing kind of the alternate economy that they have, so that people can buy and sell stuff and get stuff, because if you go through channels, you can't usually get it, and if you do, you're paying way more than you need to. So I think there might be some of that stuff going on at some point. But again, we've got great vendors, great speakers, great classes, and really, really proud of what we put together this year.
And one thing I like about, Prepper Camp is just, you mentioned great speakers, but you also mentioned great organization, and you need both, because if you have great speakers, but it's a shit event, like, it's not put together, people don't have a good time. And if you can have the best organized event in the world, but without good quality speakers and vendors, again, they're not going to have a good time. And you have both. Yep. You've got that perfect marriage there for sure. And it's, I'm not an expert on it, but I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, this, and for Jane and myself, we did this event because we were on the speaking circuit going nationwide, and they weren't run by people they were run by promoters. They weren't really run by people who were preppers or who were, interested in living off the grid themselves. They were just trying to make a buck on, the latest craze. And we just said we wanted to do an event that we would want to attend. And for us, this is like our ministry. So this is not a money-making event for us by any means. And this is just kind of how we give back to the community and teach people to live the way that we do every single day, so that, more people will be able to be self-sufficient, sustainable, and protect themselves and their family. And, the attendees are not your, what people imagine preppers to be. They're not tinfoil hat wearing, idiots that are running around, that, the kind of thing that Doomsday Prepper made people look like, because it had eyeballs to the TV and it sold advertising. The more outrageous and weird it could be, the more people watched it. But these people are just normal, average, everyday people that are just trying to take care of themselves and their family, and be prepared for a disaster, or be prepared for the worst possible scenario where all these Chinese military age males who are all carrying the same backpack with the same stuff in it are crossing over our border in Mexico, from Mexico, and crossing over our southern border and going somewhere. And it only takes a few guys to take out a substation, and they do it at the same time in a couple of places, and suddenly they take out the grid goes down. And with no grid, we have no computers, we have no internet, we have no just-in-time delivery for groceries, we have no groceries being delivered, we have no gas stations working because they're all running off the grid too. And suddenly we don't have food being taken in. And the DOD has, Department of Defense has gamed this thing out. And if we had an EMP or the grid went down, in 2 months, 80% of the population will kill each other over food and resources, or just die of disease. So 80% of the population will be dead, 20% will be left. There'll be people like you and I and the listeners, the ones that are prepared. And then there'll be the really, really, really bad psychopaths. And then, China walks in with their army and just mops up, and they take over the land and the territory and the building without really much of a fight. So that's what concerns me, and we need to be more prepared for that. So a lot more of Prepper Camp. There's a lot of, how to defend our country too. So, and if you're in Canada, just move and we'll take care of you. Yeah.
I'm working on, Rick was so excited when I told him we bought 10 acres in Tennessee, and that's our, Yeah, we call it the Workshop Gully down there, and that's our command center south. That's for sure. I can't wait to spend a lot more time down there.
Good.
So how can people follow up with you personally or Jane if they want to support you in any way, shape, or form?
If you go to survivejane.com, my wife's website, and it's one website, preparedness website for women. So she kind of talks in a different way than I talk. And she developed that site because when she was first researching what all this prepping stuff was about, she said, all this stuff is written for men's and it's all about guns and it's all about, XK 3597, whatever it is. I just want to talk to people. And so, yeah, she's got a lot of traffic there. It talks about what just kind of normal stuff, how to take care of your family. And then my site is secretgardenofsurvival.com, secretgardenofsurvival.com, all run together. And that's where you can find links to all of my books, the kind of the background for my garden book, my greenhouse book, my livestock book. And, there's buttons there you can click on to order them through Amazon, or you can get them the Kindle version or Barnes & Noble Nook version. So you can get them electronically too.
Well, thank you. If you want to hang in the background for just a sec, Rick, I'll close up.
Sure.
And I'll be right back with you.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you very much. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Rick could speak eloquently about so many different topics, and it's hard to pick one when I bring him on. So we thought, let's talk a little bit about the secret garden, a little bit about your design of your homestead, and of course about Prepper Camp. So I'd love to tell you, if you want to meet Rick in person, come to Prepper Camp, but about the extent of what you get to meet him is a walk-by wave or a walk-by handshake, because he is one busy dude. But like he said, him and Jane, this is their ministry, and it's worth it. The price, even if you wait until after August 15th, it's like $89.95. And for 3 days, it's worth it. I'd heard the guys at Prepper Camp brag about it for almost a year, and I had to go. And I went, and guess what? I'm going back this year, and it's 3,700 kilometers and whatever that is in freedom units, but it's a 37-hour drive for me to get there. So if I can drive 37 hours and go there, you can drive a couple hours and go there, because it's awesome. And if you want to meet up in person, come, and we will definitely have a workshop get together there. But I'm going to be there. I'm going to be talking about preparedness. Rick will be there. Jane will be there, and a whole bunch of other people. So with that, guys, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.